Hi, and welcome this afternoon, early evening. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 special board meeting of November 15th, 2021. Let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First of all, welcome. Welcome to those of you that are here this evening participating. Thank you to those that are at home watching on Zoom right now. And welcome especially to our candidates this evening. And we'll have a chance in a few moments for you to introduce yourselves. I'd also like to introduce in the back Dr. Sean Hawker, our superintendent, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, board member, Miss Lisa May, board member, Miss Lynn Town, clerk of the board, and I'm Rebecca Smith, vice chair. The board met this morning and chose finalists for the interview process. Each candidate will be asked the same 6 questions in a panel-style format, where candidate A will answer question 1 first, followed by candidates B, C, and D. On question 2, candidate B will go first, and we'll continue rotating kind of in that order until we complete all of the questions. Prior to this meeting, Clerk Town drew names to determine the order. Our candidates this evening are Heather Tenbrink, Jen Salmi, Gary Patterson, and Mr. Nick Lapire. Heather, you have been chosen and selected as candidate A, followed by Jen, followed by Gary, followed by Nick. So you'll get to start, but then each candidate will get the chance to go first this evening. All right. At the conclusion of the questions, I will open discussion amongst the board and follow that with a vote of the trustees. Voting will be done simultaneously on paper ballots, with Clerk Town collecting the ballots and reading them aloud. Ms. Town will acknowledge each trustee and for whom they cast their vote. It will take a majority of 2 ballots cast for a single candidate to fill the vacancy. In the event we do not have board majority after the first vote, I will reopen discussions and then we will have a revote. If we continue to fail to reach consensus, we can either continue to repeat the discussion or voting process, or we can reopen the application window and hold another round of interviews. On behalf of the trustees and the applicants, we ask that our audience this evening remain silent while we conduct the interviews. We cannot have any disruptions to this process. Please be courteous to our guests. No applause, cheers, whispering, or conversations. Thank you. In the event of power loss this evening, just to prepare ourselves. If it flickers, we'll stay put, we'll hang tough, and hopefully it will come back on, but it will take a few minutes for the rebooting process to happen, and we want to be able to continue our live streaming. Okay, so that might be a 5 to 6 minute process. We'll hopefully not have to do that. If it is completely off, we will have to reschedule due to the inability to project it and to maintain just open meeting at that point. So let's be hopeful. All right. I first and foremost, before we continue, and I'll let the trustees say a few words as well, want to thank you all for being here this evening, having been in your seats. I know what that's like. And so I'm thankful for each of you being willing to put yourself out there and to be open to serving our community and to serving our school district. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I would just like to echo Chair Smith's comments also. Thank you for being here tonight and putting yourself out there. It's a difficult position, but I appreciate your efforts, and so far I've enjoyed getting to know you on paper, and I look forward to our conversation tonight.
Yeah, thank you for being here. As I mentioned earlier, I was really impressed with the group of candidates we had. I think we had 9 great candidates. So thank you to the 4 of you for being here tonight. I did mention earlier this evening I've participated in this process twice as a candidate. What I didn't mention was I wasn't picked either time. And so I just say that to keep you involved. Eventually I found my way onto the board. So I hope you do too. I realize that there's going to be 8 people at the end of the day that are disappointed or relieved, I'm not sure which, that they weren't selected. And so thank you for being here. It's no hard feelings. We have one spot to fill, and we get to pick one person. So thank you.
Terrific. Any initial questions, or should we get started? Everyone kind of understand the process? Oh, great. Thank you. Microphone training. There's a red button there. If it's your turn to speak, go ahead and turn it off afterwards. Okay, and so red is on. So thank you for that. Our first question is just please introduce yourself. Tell us why you want to be a school board member. What are the strongest character traits and skills that you feel will support the board? Go ahead and tell us about yourselves and tell us why you want to serve.
Well, I applied to be on the school board because I have a strong belief in public education. My kids have had good experiences in the Coeur d'Alene School District. I have been grateful to have such a strong public school here in our community, and I'd like to help continue that tradition and even improve that tradition that we have here in Coeur d'Alene. My kids have attended Coeur d'Alene School Districts for their entire K through 12 careers. One of my daughters has graduated. The others are still in high school and middle school. As far as character traits that I would bring to the board, I think I'm good at considering others' viewpoints and then thinking through that critical thinking. I guess one of our skills we want graduates to have too. I work for an accountant, so I'm comfortable with budgets and things like that as well. And I am excited to serve all the students and community members in Coeur d'Alene.
So I have 4 children. Backing up though, however, I attended public schools growing up. I'm originally from Pocatello, Idaho, graduated from there. And my 4 children have all attended public schools. I have a very deep appreciation for public schools. I believe there's so many resources that are available through public schools to benefit all students in our community. My oldest has graduated from the schools district here, and I still have 3 remaining children in the district. And I just felt on my heart that I just needed to apply for the position on the school board and just continue advocating for our students as well as our parents and our community as a whole. I subbed in the district for several years, and it was a very insightful opportunity for me to just see the inner workings of the school district, and I had no idea that all the things that the school district can offer, and it was very insightful, and again just even deepened more appreciation for what we offer to our students. And as far as characteristics, I feel like I'm a people person. I love engaging with people. I feel like I'm very approachable, as well as have a good sense of calmness. I feel that, which I think is helpful in trying to, respond and find a connection with people and finding that common ground and building on that. And I'm definitely, I feel like I'm honest, hardworking, dedicated, and I just would be an honor to serve our students and our parents in the community on the school board.
Howdy. My name is Gary Patterson, and I, first of all, want to thank the board for your willingness to consider my credentials for this position. This was, to be honest, a shot in the dark, but having been an educator for a number of years, education's in my blood, and I really enjoy the aspect of being able to associate with not only parents but students and all the stakeholders, because it's, as we hear, it takes a village to raise students, and everybody needs to be able to have a voice. And so that would be probably the primary reason why I'm interested in serving. All my kids are out of the house, and so I have the time. I'm not, except for my cat. I gotta, take care of him. But anyway, as far as strongest character traits, I love to listen to people's stories. I like to get their opinions. I like to get their perspective. I think that just enriches the whole conversation when you have the opportunity to hear what everybody else is thinking, and then it provides a context for decisions that need to be made. And without that context, you're just kind of shooting in the dark. And so I feel like that I could do very well in that particular aspect. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Nick Lapierre. I appreciate the opportunity to sit before you and answer some questions tonight. Thank you, trustees Smith, May, Morris Rowe. Also our newly elected trustees here tonight as well. Thank you. So what brings me here? I come here tonight as a father of 2 young children. My daughter, 8 years old, is relatively new to public school. My son will be when he's old enough to be in public school as well. My wife and I are both products of public school, not just generally, but specifically right here in Coeur d'Alene. I went to Whitten Elementary, Lakes Middle School, Lake City High School. My wife, same, except she was a rival. She went to Coeur d'Alene High School. We don't talk about that much, but so why I'm here is because this matters to me. This matters to me for my kids, for our children in public school. I want to see them become the best people they can be, and what can education and public school do to help them do that. We know about the portrait of a graduate. We know about being critical thinkers, content knowledge. They need to know not only content of what education and curriculum is teaching them, but also helping them be strong, good, courageous people. Helping them be brave enough to be the people they want to be, confident enough to speak up. That's who I want to see our public education school system turn out. So I'm here for the kids, for the children. As a trustee, I think we need who are our beneficiaries, who are we going to act in favor of, and so our duties lie with our children, and that's who we need to think about, I guess, every day as we come into work and put on our trustee hats. What would make me a good trustee for you all to be able to work with you is I come from I guess I'm a prosecutor. I come from a courtroom environment. My job is a high conflict job. It is a job where I make decisions every single day that affect people, defendants, victims of crimes, and you need to make tough decisions and make tough decisions all the time, looking at the best facts available to you, looking at statutes, looking at policies, looking at procedures, and you make a decision and you make the best decision that you can. As a prosecutor, we have a duty to seek justice. I think it's a pretty vague thing, but what does that mean? I think it means doing the right thing on a case-by-case basis. So that enables me here tonight to become the next trustee, and I think I'd be a good trustee for you guys to work with you. And I'm not a one-issue applicant. I'm not here tonight to just say this is one particular thing I'm running on or a campaign. There's obviously things that are important to us, but I'm here to just get to work and understand there's a lot of different things that we're going to need to tackle as trustees. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next question, we might just take a couple seconds here. Is that all right? Just so I can get caught up as we're taking notes. All right. Jen, you'll be first this time. Given a controversial issue, how would you approach it and make your decision? Would you decide differently if you find your position is contrary to that of your constituents?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Given a controversial issue, how would you approach it and make your decision? Would you decide differently if you find your position is contrary to that of your constituents?
I think, can you hear me? Okay. And I apologize. Can you repeat that one more time? Sorry, I am a little nervous.
We understand.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. If you're given a controversial issue,
Okay.
how would you approach that issue and make your decision? Would you decide differently if you find your position is contrary to that of your constituents?
Okay. Obviously, that is going to be issues that do come up as a school board member, and again, I feel like I feel like I can be a good listener and find again the common ground. I feel like I can be objective. I feel that I can make good decisions, as well as being sensitive to others as far as issues that are brought up. And I do believe that I definitely have a high regard for integrity, and I feel that I can stand firm if it's something that I truly believe is for the better interest of our community, the students, and the district. And I would definitely not have a problem with disagreeing with anybody else that was on the board, so if that was an issue.
Great question. So how would I approach controversial issue? First of all, I feel like that it would be extremely important to know all the facts surrounding that issue. So you'd need to bring in everybody and find out what their opinions are, and so on and so forth. Without that background, obviously, it's kind of hard to make any kind of decision. Once I have the facts, I'm grateful that there would be 5 people on the board, so I don't have to make the decision on myself. And constituents that might disagree with my particular position, I think we have to look at the big picture, and we have to make sure that we can't be so, have the blinders on so that we're only focused on one particular thing. We have to look at the entire district, all the students, all the faculty, all the staff, and make the decision that is best for everybody concerned, not just a few out there that say, hey, this is what we need to be doing, and why didn't you vote for that, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, it's all about the greater good for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think as probably came across pretty clearly in my letters and responses to my questions, I believe in parental involvement in our children and our families, their voices being heard. Now, obviously, as your trustee, you're the one that's got to make the decision, right? So you have to make a decision, and that should be done based upon the best facts available, the best principled logic and reasoned decision that you can come to. But that being said, at the end of the day, ultimately, maybe not tonight, but someday, this is an elected position. And I believe that a responsible trustee needs to be responsive to that, needs to be able to hear parents and families and what they have to say, and take that with them so they don't check that at the door, right? You come in and you sit here and you make decisions, but you're responsive to that and respectful to that. And I think that we all understand that there's going to be different sides to every issue. I think that's kind of the beauty of this, that there are 5 different trustees with 5 different backgrounds, 5 different worldviews. We're not always going to agree with each other, with the constituents. There's, I would say, if all 5 trustees never disagreed on any single issue, then 1 or 5 of us isn't doing our job. And part of that comes from the constituents that you're coming from too. Zone 3, the public at large, we got to listen to, I think, the parents. And that will be a big part of where I sit as a trustee. There's a big philosophy that I have. But in doing so, you can disagree without being disagreeable. You can. There's that old cartoon with the sheepdog and the wolf that's coming, and they know each other, and then they clock in for the day. Hey Frank, how you doing? And then they go out and they fight, and then they check out for the day, and they're battered and bruised, and they go, okay, see you tomorrow. All right, see you tomorrow for the day. So that's kind of an approach I think that we can have. We understand that we're going to be tackling some tough issues, some tough controversial issues. We got to stay principled, but I think that we do have to have an ear for our parents and children. Thank you.
So I agree that there's a reason there are 5 trustees. It's not meant to be one person's view. I think if something is controversial, that means by its nature, there are different opinions. And so I think if all parents and community members are united on an issue, even if my personal opinion is different than that, I maybe need to defer to their judgment. But if something is controversial, then that means they're not united. They're divided themselves. And so I think the key there is to listen to everyone's point of view and then make a decision. And then each individual trustee brings their decision to a board of 5 trustees, and we all listen to each other's process for reaching a decision, and then vote with our conscience. I think another key in situations where people have differing opinions is to recognize and hopefully help other parties recognize that we ultimately all have the same goal. Even with differing opinions, I think everyone in our community wants our children to succeed. They want to see our students do well in school. They want to see them succeed in their future lives and be ready to contribute to our community when they graduate and move on. They all want to see our schools be a place for our students to do that. And there are different ideas of how to go about that at times, but I think it's important to remember that we all are approaching the same goal, even when we're disagreeing.
What knowledge do you have about the district's portrait of a graduate, and what are your thoughts on it? I'll go ahead and repeat it.
Yes, thank you.
What knowledge do you have of the district's portrait of a graduate, and what are your thoughts on it?
I believe that, in general terms, that's a great portrait, a way to express a goal that we want to have for all the graduates within the district. Certainly, as an educator, I know that while it'd be nice to have 100% accomplish that particular goal, I believe that we do the very best that we can, given the financial means, the staff, the faculty that we have, and provide, if you could call it this, kind of a customized way for those students, even though they may not meet every single criteria that's there, they can walk away at the end of the day, at the end of the year, when they graduate, knowing and feeling good about what they've accomplished. We can't have that expectation that everybody's going to meet that. And so the ideal would be to provide a way for those students to feel good about what they've done in the 12 years that they've participated, or how many ever years they've been in the school district. And it takes a lot of individual consulting, if you will, talking with teachers, talking with counselors, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of the graduates, rather than, you know, a select few that might be college bound or whatever. We need to, again, look at the big picture and make sure that by the time those students graduate, they recognize that they've accomplished something good. Regardless of what that accomplishment may be, they feel good about what they've done. Thanks.
Thank you. Off the top of my head, I don't recall if it was adopted in 2019 or 2017, something like that. The 5 C's. Yeah, I think what I appreciate about it is it's looking beyond just nuts and bolts of the 3 R's, or, you know, what we're going to take, but it's looking at our children as a whole. You know, I think that it recognizes that there's a place for social emotional learning, there's a place for STEM, there's a place for all of that, and it goes above and beyond just I guess what's in the books, right? It allows our teachers, our educators to help our children become, you know, citizens, community members, and that's a positive thing about it. I think one of the most, I guess one of the aspects of it that I like the most, or that when it was adopted, it had that parental involvement. It had that stakeholders, community partnership in that, and that's what helped craft that to help it become adopted. And not to sound like a broken record, but again, that's one of the aspects of being a trustee that I would look forward to, is where the rubber meets the road of policy implementation with parental family feedback. And that was, I think, one of the real positive things about the 5 C's, that it was crafted kind of in that fashion, that parents, a lot of different community members and stakeholders were asked about it. They had input in it, and that's what kind of helped craft it. Thank you.
So I remember when we were working on the Portrait of a Graduate, at that time, just as a parent, you know, I got all the communications about it, and I remember it was quite a long process to try to make sure we were hearing everyone, the district was hearing everyone, and what their goals were for our students. And I think the 5 C's, of course, it's awesome that it's alliterative, but I think it covers a good description of what we're looking for, because we're not looking to just graduate kids who are book smart. We're also looking to graduate kids who know how to work with people, who have creative ideas to solve problems. One of the things I like about it is all of our students will come in with different strengths in those areas. I mean, some kids are going to be a whiz at content mastery. Some kids are super creative. And each child is going to have some part of this that they're naturally gifted at. And then I think our job as a school district is to try to help them develop skills in those areas that they're not already naturally gifted in, to help them become better at things that maybe are not, they're just, oh, I got it kinds of deals. So, and I think these are great goals to set for helping students develop in all those areas.
Like Heather, I remember getting the emails and the communication about Portrait of a Graduate. I honestly, and I'll just be very transparent, I could not tell you all the components of a Portrait of a Graduate, but I do feel that there is a sincere need, or huge need, for students to recognize and see the connection between their education that they're getting and their future. That they're not just students going through the motions, going to school every day. I really think that there are some students that don't recognize that. And so I think as far as sticking to the Portrait of a Graduate is a very good framework. I also believe that it's important to meet students where they're at. Every student has, comes from a bit different background, different experiences, different experience of the type of student they are. And I just think that it's important for teachers to have a little bit of creativity and flexibility in their approach to teaching to meet those needs and to, like I said, make it a positive experience for every student so that they can see that connection between their education and their future. And I'm definitely a big advocate for, their students, and that there's so many opportunities, and just what we always assume going after high school, going on to college, but there's so many other opportunities, trade schools and other things that, which I think is important also to work with the community and business leaders in our area, because they have some great opportunities for students of that as well.
The next question. How would you respond to a friend or a family member who feel that they can bring an issue directly to you as a board member through a text or a call?
That's a great question. I think that it's important to keep in mind and to make it clear to that person that even though your neighbors, friends, family, absolutely in no way, shape, or form can one trustee bind the board, right? So it's a voting process. So there needs to be sort of the separation there where they understand that if they're reaching out to you in your friend capacity or neighbor capacity, that they're not going to be getting any sort of, use the term special favors, treatment, something like that, but that your representations, if you give them any in their text response or email, what have you, that is not going to be binding on the board. So I think that's kind of the clear ethical line there, is that they need to understand that, look, what I'm saying individually to you in my role as a trustee is not in any way, shape, or form going to be what the board speaks on this. This is a team collaborative effort. I think that above and beyond that, you can certainly express your viewpoints and talk to people. I think that's fine, but I think there needs to be that explanation, that understanding between the recipient on the other end of the text or email, that they know, this is not binding the board to anything like that. Thank you.
I think it's important for community members to feel like they can approach us with issues. I do think that for an issue to be officially considered by the board, there's a process for that, and it's not send your friend a text. So I guess the first thing I would do is encourage them, if this is something you would like to see actual movement and change on, like if you're just complaining to me because I'm your friend but you're fine, then fine. But if this is something you'd actually like to see change, then as a first step, you need to send it to the whole board through the trustee at CDA Schools email, and then let the board as a whole be aware and consider that issue, because one trustee is not the whole board, as Mr. LaPile said. So.
I feel like this. I feel like I could be good at this. Like, this is something that, to quote my family and my kids, I've always been known as firm and fun, even when I was substituting. So I'm a strong believer in boundaries. I'm a strong, as mentioned before that, but I also feel that I'm a mom and a wife first, and so I would definitely have to have some boundaries, certain times of the day that I would have to set aside to receive emails, from parents. But I could definitely, I would not be afraid to let them know that I'm here as a friend. I'm not here as a board member. I'm here just to enjoy your company, and anything beyond that would have to go through the proper command or channels of as far as if they had any issues or anything like that. So, but yeah, I'm a strong believer in that.
There. Okay. I concur with all the answers. There's not a whole lot that I can add to that. Being the fourth person, people need to know that they can approach you, that they can express their opinions and their thoughts and ideas, but at the same time, they need to know, and if we have to tell them that to remind them that we're only one of five, and there's no way that we can make a good decision without the rest of the board. And I like what Heather said, that, if you like it, if you really are passionate about this, send it to the board and we'll consider it as a committee of the whole. Because just sending it to me isn't going to get you where you want to be in terms of that particular goal or that issue. Thank you.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Lisa, you're good.
And we're back to Heather again. What are the most pressing issues facing the district, and how would you address them?
Well, that's a big one. I think one of the most pressing issues in our district, and I addressed this in my questionnaire response, is we have a disconnect, I think, maybe between our schools and some community members who care about our schools. And I mentioned in my letter, one of the things I think that we might think about is focusing on outreach to community members who are not directly associated with our schools. I, as a parent, feel like I'm pretty well informed, and I think the district works really hard to get info out to parents. And to invite us to be part of the school community. I think, as I was thinking about this, I don't know if any of you have been to Math is Cool. It's this program for elementary school kids where they do math, and then they meet in a gym for an award ceremony, and they cheer their heads off because they're so excited about math. And it's awesome. And I don't think anyone in our community, as I was thinking about people who are concerned about how we use levy funds, I think if people understood better some of the programs that those levy funds pay for, I don't think anyone's going to think, no, don't take our kids and get them cheering their heads off about math. Or if they saw our music programs or our art programs, or one of the things we have in our district that I was so grateful for is we have a PE teacher, an art teacher, and a music teacher in every one of our elementaries. And that is not necessarily true everywhere because you got to have the budget for that. So I think one of the concerns in our district is a perception and with some of our community members, especially those that maybe don't feel as directly connected or invited to interact with our school community. Another issue, of course, is the high school schedule change. That will be a difficult decision the board will have to make and will directly impact all of our high school students. And so I think that's a hard one because there's no decision that everyone is going to think, yay! So, and then I also, I think we need to support our students. I've been really happy with some of the work I've seen in the high schools, and also the middle schools, as the last several years, with supporting our students in in their challenges. I specifically think of Sources of Strength. I really liked that program. I think it's been really good for our kids to learn to identify their sources of strength and where they can turn when they need help. I've really appreciated that in our school, and I think that will continue to be a need to focus on for our students.
I feel like right off the bat, and this is just because recently in the news, I have a child at Woodland, and they are at 127% capacity. So I definitely think dealing with the growth in our area is a very pressing issue. But I also feel we have several smart leaders in our community that we can definitely come together as a plan and unite as a community to address those issues, because no child should have to sit on a counter with their backpack in a classroom trying to learn. I think also I definitely piggyback off what Heather said. I really think our community, there's a disconnect between several members of the community, and including parents, that this is a school district of I believe it's around 11,000 students, and as a public entity, as a public school system, we need to provide opportunities for every child to obtain their educational goals and provide them a healthy school environment and experience. And I firsthand, not only as a parent, but as a substitute, and as I mentioned before, my eyes were wide open. Like, for example, the SRO officers, they are more than just a safety officer. Like, you see them, sorry, and I apologize, because they are just one more positive role model in many of our schools. I saw them not just protecting the school, but you'd see them on the playground engaging with kids. You would see them sitting in a lunchroom with some kid who came to school without breakfast. So again, there's so many hats that several of these school district employees wear, not just the one that's on their job assignment. And again, like she mentioned, the music and several of these other programs that really programs that I feel are much needed, and just including like the backpack program. I remember firsthand putting food into backpacks for kids going home that I knew wouldn't have food over the weekend. So those are things that are very dear to my heart, and I really think the community as a whole needs to look at the whole picture, that we are a large school district with so many needs, and we just need to keep that in mind for several of these programs and education, that we're trying to lift up every child in this district.
I've appreciated the responses by Heather and Jan. I too believe that growth is certainly a big factor. We need to make sure that we're not overwhelming teachers. Having been in the classroom, you get over 24 students in a classroom, particularly at the lower levels, and it just becomes very difficult to manage and be able to give students the individual attention that they really deserve and should have in those kinds of situations. I think another concern would be staff and faculty concerns that they might have in terms of, administration and revolving doors, and it's, from talking to several, it seems like in some cases it's kind of like, okay, this person's here for a certain period of time and then they're gone, and not a lot of stability in terms of the way some faculty and staff have felt. The third thing is that it kind of goes back to one of my last opportunities I had to substitute in the district, was a lot in the special ed program. And I tell you, of course, one of the great things about that program is that you have small classes. And so therefore you have the teachers, you have the paras that are able to give more one-on-one attention to the students. I mean, that would be the ideal if you could, have a class of 15 kids. But one of the things that I noticed that is very powerful in that particular program is the opportunity that those teachers and those paras have to give not only the one-on-one attention, but to celebrate with those students their small successes. And I think too often when we get caught up in the big picture and what are we going to, the lesson plan and the objectives for the day, we don't have an opportunity, and teachers don't have that opportunity to recognize students for, even going up to them and saying, wow, that was an awesome, whatever it was that they did. And so I think that opportunity for students to feel like that their effort, regardless of how small, is appreciated, and that rather than well, okay, there's another red check mark because you didn't quite do it right, flip it around and help these students feel more respected for however small that particular effort may be. Thank you.
Well, I think I can see a couple different pressing issues. One is, I guess, what I'd call fiscal. There's no question that we're growing. This is such a desirable community. Our quality of life is just outstanding here, and so we're seeing growth. And with that comes the housing market. And try to buy a home if you're just new to the area. So I think that's something to explore and look at. How are we retaining and attracting quality educators? Are they getting cost of living adjustments? Do they have competitive wages, living wages? And I don't think the answer is just as easy as tax and spend, and I'm not trying to advocate for that, but that's something I think to take a look at. And again, kind of from where I sit tonight, I don't think I'd be in a position to say we need to do X, Y, and Z on fiscal policies, but I think that's something that as the board we could definitely look at. We've been fortunate enough in the past in our community where we've had good support and had successful levies. I think part of that is with the transparency. So I think we need to continue being transparent with our fiscal responsibilities. And also responsible about it, how we go about spending those resources, and maybe we can look and explore ways where we can again retain and attract quality educators. And we need those people in our community. When kids get so excited when they run into their teacher at the store, we need to see them here in our communities, living and working here. And how do we keep those good educators that we have? The next kind of pressing issue. I'd call this tiny little thing called COVID. I mean, I don't know how, boy, has 2020 taught us anything. I think there's a couple things we can look at with that. One is kind of just being dynamic. We have these quarantine periods and technology, and how do we address those issues? Because is this going away anytime soon? We know that the school board trustees are supposed to look at primarily at broad issues of policy and not necessarily specific day-to-day operations, right? That's the superintendent, that's for administrators in the school. So what kind of policies can we look at that get our children on campus, in school, safely and healthy? I think when we look at these quarantine periods, I guess it's just kind of one issue to pick on. We got CDC, Panhandle Health, different guidelines and quarantine periods. Do our schools have the ability to get children in quicker when it's safe to come in? Obviously, no one's advocating for children to come back to school when it's unsafe for them, but is there some policy work that we can do to try to look at how do we get this turnaround time to be something more realistic? Technology is another huge issue that I see. It's one thing to ask a high schooler or a middle schooler to log into a Zoom class and start working on their computers at home, but you try to ask an elementary student to do that, and it's like you start talking about iStation, iReady, and trying to get these children to test at home on these programs. I just think technology has a place. It's not going away anytime soon. It's obviously getting more and more prevalent every day, but as a board, can we be more responsible about how we ask the younger students specifically to deal with and work with technology? Thank you.
Jen.